to protect your wealth.
Ask how you can get up to $2,000 in free silver. This offer ends soon. Call 1-800-885-1955. 1-800-885-1955.
Right now, Guatemala's volcano of fire is still spewing rocks and ash nearly 2 days after its most violent eruption in more than a century, which killed at least 69 people. An unknown number of residents are still missing and could be buried in the ash. Sunday's eruption left many people just moments to escape. Now thousands of people are staying in shelters, waiting for word of their missing loved ones.
We feel like things are continuing to move forward and good progress has been made, and we're continuing to prepare for the President's Summit. The schedule for tentatively for that first meeting will be on June 12th at 9 a.m. Singapore time and take place June 11th, 9 p.m. East Coast time.
Breaking this morning, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders with those new details about next week's summit between President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats some demands they say they want met before any deal with North Korea is done, including completely dismantling the country's nuclear and ballistic missile programs permanently. Joining us with his thoughts, Oklahoma Republican Senator James Inhofe. He is a member of the Armed Services Committee. What would you like to see the president come back from Singapore with, Senator?
Well, I think two things. First of all, a verifiable denuclearization, for the whole peninsula there. And I think that's what the president wants. That's what was repeated by the Secretary of Defense just over the weekend. And I believe that's a reality. But the other thing I think is important is for them to understand in North Korea, we will still maintain troops in that area, because since the first deal was made, and I remember because I was over there at the time, now China has become much more of a threat than they were before. And of course, we have other reasons to keep troops there. But I think the expectations by some people, or maybe even by North Korea, is that we would not do that, but we would. Those are the two main things that I want to see them come back with, and I believe they will.
So if the North Korean regime were to say, okay, we will give up our nuclear weapons, but you've got to pull your troops out of South Korea, that would be a non-starter for you?
That would be a non-starter for me, because we have other reasons. And I know that Kim Jong-un understands that. He may make a play for that. But and let's... Looking at it now, we're only talking about just a week from right now that's going to take place. We don't want the American people to expect too much at one time, because the fact that they are together right now, or a week from now, that's enough right there to get something started. None of that's happened before. And as I stated back when the president first made the statement, I don't remember the exact words, but when he told Un, he said, yeah, you try to do something to an American city, we'll blow you off the face of this earth. Now, you got to keep in mind that all started on November 28th, John, because that's when we discovered they do have the capability of hitting an American city. So I think that the fact that we have bullies like Kim Jong-un, they only understand people who are strong people, strong-willed people, and not the mushy types that we've had in our foreign relations in the last 10 years.
He has shown some goodwill in recent months. I mean, the horrific death of Otto Warmbier aside, there have been some signs, I guess you will, from the North Korean regime that they are malleable.
Sure. Well, sure, John. Keep in mind, we have our 3 hostages that came back. They have destroyed, apparently, the nuclear test site. At least they say they have. We don't know that for sure. But and they have suspended their nuclear tests. So I don't know how we could have asked for more. And some of the Democrats who almost get to the point where they don't want this thing to be successful. But a lot of them are saying they haven't done enough. They have. Kim Jong-un has done more to show the sincerity of what he wants to do than any time before to any of the rest of them, whether it's Kim, his father, or anybody else who was in at that time. So good things are happening over there. They understand we have a president right now who knows what he's saying, it means what he's saying, and he is, frankly, and I just got back from over there just over the weekend, he's to the point right now where he is reestablishing America as the leader of the free world. We lost that during the Obama administration. And so good things are happening over there.
Quickly, we mentioned that there are 5 primary Democrat demands that they sent Democrat senators who sent a letter to the White House saying they want 5 things from the White House. There you see them dismantling and removing nuclear, chem, and biological weapons, dismantling North Korea's weapons infrastructure. We'll continue the list as we talk, but do you feel that the senators are getting too involved in negotiating, trying to negotiate the details of this?
Look, they've failed in the past, and now we have a president that's going to make this happen. We're getting close to the time. It's almost on us now. And so I'm not about to, and I don't think the president is going to be listening to Republicans or Democrats. He knows how to negotiate. He's going to be negotiating, and let's let someone who knows what he's doing do it for a change.
And Senator James Inhofe, Republican from Oklahoma. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
The Supreme Court handing a big win to a Colorado baker who refused to make a cake for a same-sex couple. We are live with reaction to the controversial ruling. Plus, new disturbing details on an Arizona killing spree, how investigators think the victims are all connected. Next. Just in, Arizona police now linking 2 more victims to suspected serial killer Dwight Jones. Jones shot and killed himself at a Scottsdale motel while police were closing in on him yesterday. Investigators believe he was behind the murders of 6 people, including a high-profile forensic psychologist who worked on the JonBenet Ramsey case. Jonathan Hunt is live from our West Coast newsroom with the new details. Boy, this one gets more complicated by the minute.
Yeah, and very disturbing as well, Melissa. As the investigation continues, the motive for the 6 murders is becoming clear thanks to court records of a bitter divorce between the shooter, Dwight Lamont Jones, and his ex-wife, Connie, and some deeply disturbing videos posted on YouTube. The account under the name Exposing Lowlifes has now been taken down, but Fox News obtained some of the videos before it was suspended. Much of it simply cannot be broadcast, but it paints a picture of a man railing against his ex-wife and all those who helped her in the divorce.
I would assume her attorney came up with this strategy because Connie's too dumb to come up with such a plan.
Jones also wrote in one post, quote, "Open letter to my son. I have not seen since 2011 because his mom took him away from me. She got a lawyer before me, set me up for death. And the rest is history." Investigators have confirmed Jones killed 4 people and believe he is connected to 2 more murders discovered yesterday. He seems to have targeted people he believed were connected to his divorce proceedings or who worked for law firms connected to it. In a statement yesterday, Jones' ex-wife Connie said, quote, he was a very emotionally disturbed person as the court records will confirm. Personally, I have feared for my safety for the past 9 years. I cannot express the emotions I feel for the innocent families touched by this senseless violence. Interestingly, it was actually Connie Jones' new husband, a retired detective, who first realized the potential connection between Dwight Jones and the killings and alerted police, helping them ultimately, Melissa, to bring an end to this awful murderous spree. Melissa?
Wow, really scary details there. Jonathan Hunt, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, several states are holding primary elections today. How the contests in one key state could leave a party off the ballot come November. Plus, the new showdown over immigration on Capitol Hill. A live report on the latest petition from a bipartisan group of lawmakers.
Both parties watching closely as millions of voters head to the polls in 8 state primaries today, but California is the place to watch for sure. Because of the state's jungle primary system, it puts the top 2 finishers on the November ballot, even if they're both in the same party. Peter Ducey is live from San Diego with more. You have the fun one, Peter. Tell us about it.
It is fun, and it's interesting, Melissa. This is the first primary day in California ever that Republicans are basically a third party. There are now more registered Democrats and people registered as having no party preference than there are registered Republicans. And if you look at the 20-year trend line, it shows that Republicans have lost about 10% of their membership, while Democrats have lost a fifth that many voters, and those without a party preference have steadily grown. And that is a gap that experts say may soon be even wider.
California allows 16 and 17-year-olds to register. Among 16 and 17-year-olds, less than 10% identify as Republicans, or about 40% identify as Democrats. So, if we look to the future, the Republicans don't have a natural sort of breeding ground for the next generation of the.
And these registration numbers may be the reason the progressive Democrat Gavin Newsom appears poised to easily come in first place in the gubernatorial jungle primary today.
I have seen this movie before where front runners take things for granted and they just read the polls, and then folks that allegedly were supportive don't turn out because they think, oh, that person's got it, and those folks are looking for work. I have no interest in looking for a new job. I look forward to auditioning for a new job come November, and that means we got to win in June.
But strategists are telling us that Republicans here have a unique ability to appeal to no party preference voters, and that is why a Republican, John Cox, could win the second spot on the governor's ballot today.
I think it takes some guardrails off in the sense that candidates don't have to be doctrinaire, tick-the-box Republicans. It gives them some flexibility on issues that the electorate may be more moderate than, say, red state strategy and the southern strategy would dictate.
Despite the dwindling number of Republicans, though, in this system where the top 2 candidates advance regardless of party affiliation, there are some districts where it's possible that voters will not have any Democrats on the ballot come November. Melissa?
All right. Thank you for that.
Let's talk a little bit more about that last thought with Jim Brulte. He is chairman of the California Republican Party. This is generally thought to be a year in which Republicans are going to have trouble. But the way the system is set up in California, with so many Democrats on the ballot, you might wind up with races where the top 2 vote getters are Republicans, right?
Yes, we don't normally have that in competitive congressional seats, although we've had that in state Senate and state Assembly seats where we've had 2 Republicans run off or 2 Democrats run off. I think conventional wisdom about 5 weeks ago was because there were so many Democrat candidates for Congress in our targeted seats, and they were so well funded that we may end up with 2 Republicans in 2 or 3 of the districts. But the Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee, by my count, has spent $6 to $8 million trying to impact Republican candidates. And I will be pleasantly surprised if we have 2 Republicans in any of our top congressional targets.
All right. Democrats think that they can flip the House this year, that they can win the 23 seats that they need to take back the majority. How many of those seats do you suspect could come from California? Because there are at least 10 races that the Democrats think they can win there.
Yeah, I don't think any of those seats are going to come from California. We have 14 Republican congressional seats in California. By the way, most states in America do not have 14 congressional seats total. Out of our 14 congressional seats, 7 of them were carried by Hillary Clinton in 2016. The Democrats are targeting about 10 seats. But those Democrat candidates have been racing to the left. In a number of cases, they're actually to the left of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. So if we get a Republican-Democrat runoff in all of those 10 seats, most of the Republican candidates are mainstream. Most of the Democrat candidates are far to the left of where average California voters are. So I don't think, irrespective of the Democrats' desire, I don't think they're going to pick up seats here in California in November.
What about the tax bill that was passed by the Republican-controlled Congress, signed into law by President Trump? Is that a problem for Republicans or an asset as they run in California?
Well, in most of the districts, it's an asset. Most Californians file their income taxes and pay the standard deduction. So when you raise the standard deduction, most Californians benefit. There are a couple of districts that are fairly affluent along the coast where some of the wealthier voters do not benefit, but the vast majority of voters in California benefit. So the Democrat talking points that this is a big negative for California isn't. It may be a negative for California government, but it's not a negative for rank-and-file California voters.
What about immigration? I mean, California has declared itself a sanctuary state. There's a Republican in the White House who wants to build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico. Does that issue help or hurt Republicans running for Congress?
By and large, it helps most of them. This is another example. You know, one size doesn't fit all. The Democrats have made California a sanctuary state. That's one of the reasons the violent crime rate is rising as fast as it is, although another reason is they've let 40,000 felons out of state prison. There are 10 or 12 counties that have already voted to sue the federal government, and there are over 42 cities that have voted to sue the California government because they don't agree with it. In most congressional districts, sanctuary state is a positive for Democrats. Those are up in the Bay Area, but in most of the competitive seats, sanctuary state policies are a negative because voters just don't like it.
We are going to be watching these races very closely. Jim Brulte is the head of the California GOP. Thanks, sir, for spending some time today.
Thanks, John.
Meantime, the House lawmakers getting back to work today are facing a big showdown over immigration. The president tweeting this: separating families at the border is the fault of bad legislation passed by Democrats. Border security laws should be changed, but the Democrats can't get their act together. Started the wall. Mike Emanuel is live on Capitol Hill. Mike, what do you make of all this?
Well, hi, Melissa. Yeah, June is setting up to be Immigration Month in the House of Representatives, as many members of both parties want to address the issue. House Democratic Leader Nancy Pelosi says her Democrats are ready to go.
I don't think that will be a problem for us. I don't think that will be a problem for us. We just want to see the Republican names come on. But it is an opportunity for members to then vote. There are 4 bills that will be available. We think that the bipartisan proposal to help our dreamers is the one that would prevail. It's just a question is if the Republican leadership will allow it to prevail. But that's where the focus should be.
The problem for Speaker Paul Ryan and the House Republican leadership team is some moderate Republicans are willing to work with Pelosi and the Democrats to force action on the so-called Dreamers, the young people brought to this country illegally by their parents. A Texas Republican says lawmakers must address this problem.
Working on this issue with friends like Jeff Denham from California, Carlos Cabello from Florida, Elise Stefanik from New York City, in order to force this vote. This is this discharge petition where it's saying, hey, we're going to bring multiple bills to the floor on immigration and have that vote.
But some conservatives are unhappy about giving the young people a path to citizenship. The chair of the House Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows, says that is a critical part of the debate. Meadows telling CBS recently the debate becomes over, should there be a special pathway? Should they go to the back of the line? Should they go to the front of the line? And obviously those things are things that lawmakers have to negotiate on. Bottom line, House Republicans are going to have a special conference on Thursday to see if they can come up with some kind of compromise on immigration. Melissa?
Well, they've had a lot of time. Mike Emanuel, thank you.
A scare in the air with a pilot forced to make an emergency landing. And check out the plane. You won't believe what caused all that damage. Plus, Bill Clinton under fire for some comments on the Monica Lewinsky scandal. What he has to say now as he tries to explain. But will the clarification help?
I asked if you'd ever apologized, and you said you had.
I have.
You've apologized to her.
I apologize to everybody in the world.
But you didn't apologize to her.
I have not talked to her. 575-7943.
This just in, an American Airlines flight forced to make an emergency landing in Texas after it was hit by a hailstorm over the weekend. The hail shattering the pilot's windshield and crushing the nose cone of the jet. Look at that. The flight from San Antonio to Phoenix started having trouble about an hour after takeoff. The pilot reporting he had virtually no visibility. He safely landed the plane in El Paso, and thankfully, no one was injured.
Breaking now, so there's a new controversy for Bill Clinton as the former president tries to clarify some recent comments that he made on the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Listen.
The truth is, the hubbub was I got hot under the collar because of the way the questions were asked. The suggestion was that I'd never apologized for what caused all the trouble for me 20 years ago. I did. I meant it then and I meant it now. I apologize to my family, to Monica Lewinsky and her family, and to the American people. I meant it then, and I mean it today.
Joining us now is Brad Blakeman, former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush. Also Dave Brown, former senior advisor and committee counsel to Senator Patty Murray and a Democratic strategist. Just to refresh our audience's memory, here is a bit of the interview that caused the controversy in the first place.
Do you feel like you owe her an apology?
No, I do. I do not. I've never talked to her, but I did say publicly on more than one occasion that I was sorry. That's very different. The apology was public.
He also said he didn't get out of it scot-free, that he came out of the presidency $16 million in debt. And Brad, maybe one of the problems is that he sort of in that interview, he got angry and he sort of made it sound like he felt he was the victim of the whole situation. What do you think?
I think the hubbub is the fact that he's a serial predator and he can't bring himself to make a personal apology to the victim who he victimized in the White House. This was an intern's first job to be hit on by the President of the United States. It's unconscionable. Anybody else would have been fired on the spot and run out of town. This was brought upon himself, his own personal behavior, which reflected his professional behavior. So I think the Clintons are more akin to a political crime family than they are a political dynasty.
Dave, I mean, part of the problem, and this was one of his allies quoted in the newspaper, you know, obviously this is something that happened a long time ago, but the way that he responds to it today, in the context of everything that's happened to the Me Too movement, someone who was on his side said, I think it's safe to say I was a little stunned. Certainly not what I would have expected him to say, particularly at this time with everything that is going on in the backdrop. This is in the Hill. In response to the way he talked about it today, your thoughts?
Well, first, I think his conduct was unacceptable then, and I think it is similarly unacceptable today. But, you know, this is an important teaching moment, and the Me Too movement has really brought, I think, in stark relief a lot of these issues to the forefront, and we're finally beginning to have a national conversation about appropriate conduct in the workplace, whether you're the President of the United States, whether you're a sitting member of Congress, whether you're a member of the judiciary, or whether you're a CEO or someone who holds a position of power over someone else in corporate life. So, you know, I think it's an important conversation, but it's also critical that if we're going to have this conversation, we also focus on the person who matters today when it comes to being held accountable in office, which is President Trump. I mean, this is a president who has had multiple women come forward, making very credible allegations of harassment against him, and we're not focused on that. So for Republicans to opportunistically hone in on what President Clinton said last night.
Opportunistically, I mean, he's the one, he's out on a book tour. I mean, it would be different if he was off and not saying anything, but President Clinton is the one that put himself out there on a book tour at this moment, and any person with half a brain would know that this question was coming and would have prepared for it. And Brad, the impression that he gave was that he doesn't feel like he victimized anyone. He felt like everybody got hurt in this. And part of what the Me Too movement is about is the power dynamic between a very young girl in her first job and someone who has the highest job in the whole entire country and is the most powerful person in the whole entire country. And in that Oval Office, to take advantage of a very young girl, is she anything but a victim in that situation, Brad? I think that was one of the questions that people are wondering as they hear President Clinton not really own that.
No, because he feels he's the victim. He's been punished enough. He was impeached. He was disbarred. He wants people to be sympathetic to him. He's not the victim. He caused this. He's the predator. And look, Donald Trump has comported himself honorably in the White House. Not to be said about Bill Clinton. And that is the big, huge difference.
Well, Dave, no one is safe right now. I mean, if you're out there, everybody's got to watch their back and watch what they're doing and do the right thing. Isn't that what you would say? I mean, when you bring in President Trump into this?
Sure, people need to be held accountable for their conduct and their actions. But for Brad to say that Donald Trump has been a perfect citizen in the White House, he lies repeatedly to the American people. Yesterday, he said he was above the law. He has an absolute power.
No, he didn't. He didn't say he was above the law.
Yes, he did.
No, he did not.
We're veering off topic, but I hear what you're saying, gentlemen. Thank you. We got to go.
Okay.
Thanks to both of you.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
John.
Still ahead, a Colorado baker who refused to make a wedding cake for a same-sex couple speaking out about his Supreme Court victory. Next.
Ultimately, I serve everybody who comes in the store. I just don't create cakes with every message that people ask me to create for.